everybody, this is Kimberly from Lakeside Loops, and today I'm going to show you how to make my Remington diamond cable crochet hat. I used a 5mm crochet hook, some red heart soft yarn in the color light gray heather and their white color as well, and I used faux fur pom-poms that I got off of Etsy, which I will put a link to in the description of this video. You will also need the written pattern for this hat, which you can find for free on my blog, lakesideloops.com. You can also purchase a downloadable printable version of the pattern that doesn't have any ads in it from Etsy or Ravelry. So this video will just go over any of the trickier parts, the cable stitch design, how I cinched the top, how I made the band at the bottom. And then the written pattern has your stitch counts, your yardage, every little detail that you need to know in order to make this hat. You can make the hat in 4 different sizes. There's a baby size, toddler, child, and adult. All right, so before we dive in, I wanted to explain a little bit about the construction of this hat. This hat is worked from the bottom up. The brim or the bottom of the hat is made first in rows, and then we stitch that together at the back and then work in rounds to build up this cable design, and then the top is cinched up to close it up. This hat does have a seam at the back, so I just want to let you know that before you get started. If that's something that you don't like, then this might not be the hat for you. Also, this design is definitely a more advanced crochet pattern. If you've never done cable work before, then this might not be the hat design for you to start with. I just wanted to let you know that before diving in. Alright, so as I said, the full instructions for this pattern can be found on my blog for free. I'm just going to go over the basic stitches and any parts that you might have questions about. On the written pattern, you'll see it says what your beginning chain should be. I'm going to do the baby size just for the sake of making this video as quick and short and sweet as possible for you. So I'm only going to do a beginning chain of 8. Which I did too many. And once you have your beginning chain, you're going to slip stitch into the second chain from your hook. So not this chain, but right here, I'm going to loosely slip stitch, and I'm going to slip stitch, again loosely, in each chain as I go. And we're working on the bottom of our hat. This will be our rib at the bottom of the hat. All right, now I'm going to chain 1 and I'm going to turn, and now I'm only going to be slip stitching in the back loop. So as you can see, your slip stitches kind of face you, so when you turn your work, they sort of face away from you. You kind of have to tilt it up to see your front and your back loop. So here's my front loop, this is my back loop. I'm only going to be working into the back loop, and I'm just going to be creating loose slip stitches all the way down my row. So this first one's a little bit hard to get into, but once you're done this row, it gets easier. Again, you want to keep those slip stitches nice and loose so that it's easy to get into them on your next row. And this is going to create a really great ribbed look, very stretchy. It looks a lot like knit. It's my favorite way to have a cuff on a hat. So chain 1, turn, and we're going to do the same thing again. Back loop only, so not the front loop, but the back loop. Loose slip stitches all the way down our row. Alright, so as you can see here, I've skipped ahead and I've completed the ribbed section for the baby size, and I just wanted to show you, one, how stretchy this is and how it bounces right back, so it's great for a ribbed brim on a hat or mittens. Also, I wanted to show you how to count your rows. So every rib that you see, you can see here how this looks like a knitted rib. This is actually 2 rows. So if you pull it apart, you can see the ribs more clearly. Every rib is 2 rows. So you can kind of count by 2s to work your way up to how many rows you need, or I also list in the pattern how many ribs you need, which is another easy way. So just count each rib as one. In this case, for the baby size, I needed 45 ribs. And if I have my yarn end from my beginning row on this side, I can count my rows evenly all the way up to the top. You can see your last row right here. Now we're going to, I just keep my hook right in my work, and we are going to join your ribbed section together on the beginning and so the first row and the last row, I'm going to slip stitch them together to turn this ribbed section into a circle that I can crochet up from in the round to create my cable design. Alright, so I've inserted my hook into a loop from my last row and a loop from my first row, and I'm going to slip stitch them together. And I'm just going to continue on like this, working down the 2 rows to join both ends of my rib section together. Alright, so I've completed my slip stitch to join this into a circle, and now we're going to, so I was crocheting like this, and now we're going to turn and be crocheting around this top edge. Every rib is where we're going to insert, or every rib is where we're going to insert a stitch, or in some cases 2 stitches. So we're considering each rib a place to put a stitch. So right here is where I like to insert my stitches, but you can, anywhere you can get your hook in will do, but you can see right here there's kind of a loop that's going this way. That's where I insert my hook as I work along the top. Alright, so for round 1 I'm going to chain 2, and I'm going to double crochet into the first stitch or rib. So again, right here is my first rib, and I'm just going to work my hook into that loop and create a double crochet. Now we're going to put 2 double crochet into the next stitch or rib. So 2 into that same loop. Alright, now for our next sequence, we're going to skip the next stitch and double crochet in the following stitch, and then double crochet around the skipped stitch. So we're going to crisscross. So I'm skipping this, I'm going to double crochet in here. And now I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to go back to the stitch that I skipped. And I'm going to double crochet into that stitch. So you can see here I've crisscrossed. I've got a double crochet going this way and a double crochet in behind going the other way. Now I'm going to put 2 double crochets into my next stitch or rib. 1, 2. And we're going to continue like this all the way around the top of our hat. Or the top of this rib section, I should say. Alright, so I've skipped ahead and I finished the first round, and it ends with 2 double crochets in the second to last stitch, and then a double crochet in the last stitch. Then we're going to join to the top of our beginning chain with a slip stitch. Alright, now for round 2, I'm going to chain 2, and I'm going to do 2 things to this first stitch. I'm going to double crochet into it. Sorry, that was my puppy. And if you heard that whimper. And then I'm going to double crochet around that same first stitch. Sorry, front post double crochet around that same first stitch. So again, I double crocheted into the stitch, and then I front post double crocheted around the stitch. Now we're going to skip the next 2 stitches. So we're skipping this stitch, and we're going to front post double crochet around the 3rd stitch. So it's in behind here. It's this cable that's in the back. We're going to front post double crochet around that stitch. Now I'm going to double crochet into that same stitch. So into the top of it, and then into the next stitch. And now I'm going to front post double crochet around that same stitch that I just crocheted into. And then we're going to go back to the skipping 2 stitches and then front post double crocheting around the 3rd stitch, which is the one in behind here. So basically what we're doing is we're front post double, every time we did a crisscross, we're front post double crocheting around those stitches, but we're also putting double crochets into the top of them. So all of these places where you've done the crisscross, you're going to have a double crochet in each of those stitches, and you're going to have front post double crochets jetting out from the sides of them. Just like this. So you're going to have the crisscross, the front post double crochets around them, but also double crochets into them. So I'm skipping the next 2 stitches, front post double crochet around the following stitch, double crochet into that same stitch, and into the next stitch, and then front post double crochet around the same stitch. So you should have something that looks like this as you go around the top of the hat. Alright, so I made it to the end of round 2 and I have 3 stitches left. I just finished a front post double crochet. I have 3 stitches left. I'm going to skip the next 2 stitches. I'm going to front post double crochet around the next stitch, which is the last stitch in our round. And I'm also going to double crochet into that stitch as well. So I front post double crocheted around it, and I'm double crocheting into it, into that last stitch. And then I'm going to join to the top of my beginning chain with a slip stitch. So that completes round 2. Round 3, round 2 is the hardest because you're front post double crocheting around and double crocheting into the same stitches. So it can be a little bit confusing at first, but your stitch count will be the same for every round. Even though our stitches are going into different places and going around different stitches, your stitch count stays the same all the way up until you get to the last round of the hat. For round 3, I'm going to chain 2. I'm going to double crochet into the first stitch. And now I'm going to front post double crochet around this cable and this cable. So I want to crisscross these 2. So I'm going to skip this stitch, this cable here, and I'm going to front post double crochet around this cable. Now I'm going to go back to the cable that I skipped, and I'm going to front post double crochet around that cable. So you can see how they're crisscrossed. Then I'm going to double crochet into the next 2 stitches. That's the easy part, right? And now I'm back to 2 cable stitches, which are coming close together. And again, I'm going to crisscross these. So I'm going to skip this stitch and front post double crochet around this stitch. And then front post double crochet around the skipped stitch. Alright, so I've skipped way ahead here. I've built up my hat, and this is actually the last row. I'm going to skip back a few stitches to show you how I did this. So the last row, I'm trying to close the top up. I'm trying to make it narrow, more narrow, so that when we cinch up the top, it's not as lumpy. Yeah, it's not as bulky. So I'm going to back up. So what we're doing here is we're double crocheting 2 stitches together, or front post double crocheting 2 stitches together. So as you can see, any space where I had just double crochets, I've double crocheted them together, and then any posts that I had to work around, I front post double crocheted those together. So let me show you what that looks like. So for a double crochet 2 together, I'm going to yarn over insert my hook into the stitch, and pull the yarn through, yarn over, and pull through 2. And then I'm going to yarn over again and insert my hook into the next stitch. Pull yarn through, yarn over and pull through 2, and then yarn over and pull through 3. Now I've double crocheted those into 1 stitch. Now I'm going to front post double crochet. So it's the same thing, but instead of working into the stitch, I'm going to be working around the stitch. So I'm going to yarn over, I'm going to go around my stitch, grab my yarn and pull it through to the other side. Then I'm going to yarn over and pull through 2. Now I'm going to yarn over and go around the next stitch. Grab the yarn and pull it around, yarn over and pull through 2, and then yarn over and pull through 3, just like that. All right, so it's kind of hard to see on video, but I've taken my yarn end and I've weaved it in and out through every other stitch around the top of my hat, and then I'm just going to take it and pull to close the top of the hat up, just like that. And once you've cinched the top together, you can bring your hook up through your hat and pull this end down to secure it, and then you can attach a faux fur pom-pom or a yarn pom-pom of your choosing, or you can just make sure it's tied really tight and leave it blank like that if you'd like. I know my husband prefers hats like that at the top that are just tied off with no pom-pom, whatever you prefer. Alright, so that is it for this video tutorial. I hope that it helped you create this cable hat design and that you enjoyed the pattern. I can't wait to see your finished piece, so please don't forget to tag me at Lakeside Loops on social media. Thank you so much for following along. Take care.